The first time I saw her, she was bleeding on a barn floor with a gun pointed at her head. I had two choices: walk away and live, or answer her scream and probably die. I chose the scream, and that choice cost me everything, and gave me everything. This is the story of how I heard your grandmother scream in the twilight. The old man sits by the fire watching Winterclaim, Montana through the frosted window. 88 years have carved deep lines into his face, but his eyes remain sharp, clear, burning with memory. His grandson leans forward from the opposite chair, holding a photograph between careful fingers. The image is black and white edges soft with age. A young man stands on a cabin porch beside a woman in a simple dress. Both are thin-weathered, but their eyes hold something fierce, something unbroken. Who are they? Grandpa Samuel Brooks touches the photograph with trembling hands. That young man is 27 years old. The woman is 23. They have just survived something most people cannot imagine. In 6 months, they will be married. In 2 years, they will have a daughter named Faith. In 65 years, the woman will die in her sleep, her hand still reaching across the bed for the man she loves. But none of that has happened yet. Not in this photograph. Not in the story about to be told. The boy waits. Samuel closes his eyes, and when he speaks, his voice carries the weight of nearly 9 decades. That is me. That is your grandmother Margaret. And this is the story of how I heard her scream. The fire crackles, snow falls against the window, and the old man begins to remember. October 1878. Montana Territory spreads vast and unforgiving beneath an autumn sky. The Tobacco Root Mountains rise like broken teeth against the horizon, their peaks already white with early snow. In the valley below the Bitterroot River winds through stands of cottonwood, turning gold through meadows where the last wildflowers bloom in defiant splashes of purple and red. This is hard country. It makes no apologies for its cruelty. Men come here seeking freedom, seeking fortune, seeking escape from whatever haunts them in the civilized world. Most fail. Some die. A few, the stubborn ones, the ones who refuse to break, carve out small pieces of earth and call them home. Samuel Brooks is one of these. 27 years old, alone for 3 years, in a land that teaches loneliness like a second language. His cabin sits at the base of the mountains, small and square, built with his own hands from logs he cut himself. 300 acres surround it, rocky soil that fights him for every blade of grass, every fence post, every season. But it is his. Every scar on his hands tells the story of ownership. Every callus speaks of work that means something. The old man's voice grows softer. I thought I had chosen solitude, but the truth is, solitude had chosen me. After my father died at Gettysburg, after my mother followed him 3 years later, after my sister Sarah married and moved east to Boston, I convinced myself that being alone was safer, that caring for nothing meant losing nothing. I was wrong, but I did not know it yet. Not until the evening of October 17th. Not until I heard her scream. The day dies slowly, the sun sliding behind the western peaks and painting the sky in shades of orange and crimson. Samuel stands outside his cabin mending a bridle by the failing light. His hands move with practiced efficiency, the leather familiar beneath his fingers. His mare, a sturdy bay named Copper, crops grass nearby, her tail switching at late-season flies. The work is mindless, necessary. It keeps his hands busy and his mind quiet. He has become skilled at this over 3 years, this art of not thinking, not feeling, not remembering. But today, something feels different. The air carries a tension he cannot name. The birds have gone quiet in the cottonwoods. Even Copper raises her head, ears swiveling towards something Samuel cannot hear. He pauses, the bridle hanging loose in his hands. His heart beats a strange rhythm in his chest. Then the gunshot tears through the twilight like a thunderclap. Samuel's body goes still. Every muscle freezes. The sound echoes off the mountain face, rolling down through the valley, impossible to ignore. In this country, gunshots are common. Men hunt deer, shoot varmints, practice their aim against whatever target they can find. A gunshot means nothing. means everything, means something has happened that cannot be undone. He waits, listens. The echo fades into silence. Then comes the scream. It is a woman's voice, high and sharp with terror. It cuts through the evening air like a blade through flesh, primal and desperate. It comes from the direction of the old Clausen barn, the one that no longer belongs to the Clausen family, the one that now belongs to William Garrison. The scream comes again, longer this time, more desperate, and Samuel Brooks makes a choice. The old man pauses in his telling. His grandson leans forward, caught in the grip of story. 10 seconds. That is how long I stood there frozen, while my mind waged war with itself. Not your business, one voice said. Could be anything. Could be nothing. You do not know this woman. You have no obligation to her. Walk away. Go inside. Close the door. Let someone else answer. But my father's voice was louder. Thomas Brooks, sergeant in the Union Army who died leading a charge at Gettysburg to save his regiment, who taught me before I was old enough to understand that a man's worth is not measured in what he owns, but in what he is willing to sacrifice for those who cannot protect themselves. If you can help and you do not, you are just as guilty as the one causing harm. The scream comes a third time, and I am moving. Samuel does not saddle Copper. There is no time. He grabs her bridle swings onto her bare back with nothing but a handful of mane for purchase and kicks her into a gallop before his mind can catch up with his body. The rational part of him, the part that has kept him alive through 3 Montana winters, is shouting warnings. This is not your fight. Garrison is dangerous. You do not know what you are riding into. But that scream has burned itself into his consciousness. It is the sound of someone dying, someone being hurt, someone who has run out of options and out of time. It drowns out every other thought. The distance is perhaps half a mile across open range. Copper eats it up in great lunging strides, her hooves drumming against the hard earth. The sun has dropped below the peaks now, leaving the sky bruised purple and orange. In this uncertain light, Samuel can see the barn rising like a dark monument against the fading day. Otto Clausen built this structure back in 1873, a massive thing of hand-hewn logs that took him and his sons an entire summer to complete. Samuel helped with the raising along with half the men in the valley. It was a good day, one of those rare occasions when scattered homesteaders came together when the work was hard, but the company was good when you remembered why you came to this unforgiving country in the first place. That was before Otto's wife took sick, before the medical bills mounted, before William Garrison appeared with cash money and sympathetic words and papers that somehow transferred the deed to his name. Before Otto and his boys packed their wagon and headed back east, their faces hollow with defeat. The barn looks different now. Darker somehow, though Samuel cannot say why. The lamplight visible through gaps in the logs seems sickly wrong. He is 50 yards out when he sees the main door is barred from the outside. A thick beam of timber, the kind used for serious security, has been dropped across the door handles. You do not bar a barn from the outside unless you want to trap something, or someone. Samuel pulls Copper up hard and slides off her back while she is still moving. His boots hit the ground running. He covers the last 20 yards at a sprint, his heart hammering against his ribs. Up close he can hear voices inside, a man's voice low and cruel, a woman's voice pleading, "Please, please, I will sign whatever you want, just do not hurt me anymore." The sound of flesh striking flesh cuts her off. Wood splinters. Someone crashes into something heavy. Samuel grabs the beam with both hands. It is heavy green oak still damp with sap, and it takes all his strength to lift it free. The moment it comes loose, he throws it aside and grabs the door handle. It sticks. He yanks harder, putting his shoulder into it, and the door suddenly gives way with a shriek of protesting hinges. Samuel stumbles forward into lamplight and chaos. The barn's interior is a maze of shadows and golden light. Empty stalls line both walls, and the floor is strewn with old straw that rustles underfoot. In the center of the space, beneath a hanging oil lamp that swings slightly on its chain, stands a man Samuel recognizes. William Garrison is 42 years old, barrel-chested and thick-armed, with a face that might have been handsome if not for the coldness in his pale eyes. He wears a black suit despite the setting impeccably tailored with a gold watch chain gleaming across his vest. His right hand holds a revolver pointed casually downward. His left hand is clenched in a fist, and Samuel can see blood on the knuckles. On the floor at his feet, crumpled against an overturned crate, is a young woman. She cannot be more than 23. Dark hair has come loose from its pins and hangs in tangled waves around her face. Her dress is torn at the shoulder, and blood runs from her split lip down her chin, dripping onto the white lace of her collar. But it is her eyes that catch Samuel. Dark eyes wide with terror, but not empty. Not beaten. Not yet. There is fury in those eyes. Defiance. And beneath it all, a desperate calculation. In her hands, clutched against her chest, despite everything, she holds a leather envelope. For a moment, nobody moves. The lamp swings, casting dancing shadows across the walls. From somewhere outside, Copper whinnies nervously. Then William Garrison smiles. It is a politician's smile, all teeth and no warmth. Well now, what do we have here? Did not expect company this evening. Samuel's hand moves instinctively toward his hip, but his revolver is back at the cabin, hanging on a peg by the door, utterly useless. He has nothing but his bare hands and whatever words he can summon. The old man's voice grows heavy with memory. Garrison didn't know my name then, but I remember what I said next. I remember because those words changed everything. I heard a scream. I heard a gunshot. Garrison's smile does not waver. His gun remains pointed at the floor, but Samuel can see the calculation in the man's eyes. Did you now? Well, as you can see, everything is under control here. Just a private business discussion, nothing that concerns you. The woman on the floor makes a small sound, not quite a sob, not quite a word. Her eyes find Samuel's, and in them he sees a desperate plea. She is still clutching the leather envelope, her knuckles white. Does not look like business to me. Garrison's smile thins. I said it does not concern you. Now I am going to suggest politely that you turn around and ride back to that little scratch farm of yours. Forget what you saw here. Forget you heard anything. We will all be better for it. Samuel's eyes move from Garrison to the woman, taking in the full extent of the damage. Her left eye is swelling shut. Blood has dried in a trail from her nose. Her lip is split in 2 places, and there on her neck are the clear impressions of fingers. Someone has tried to strangle her. Cannot do that. Cannot Garrison's eyebrows rise, or will not both? The silence that follows is thick enough to cut. The lamp swings, the shadows dance. Samuel can hear his own heartbeat loud in his ears. Garrison shifts his weight, and the gun in his hand comes up. Not pointing directly at Samuel, but not pointing away either. Casual, deliberate. You are making a mistake, a serious mistake. This woman is a thief and a fraud. She has been trying to make claims on property that does not belong to her. I am well within my rights to detain her until the sheriff can be summoned. Sheriff is 3 days' ride from here, and I do not see any rope, do not see any legal warrant. What I see is a woman bleeding on your floor and a door barred from the outside. Garrison's face darkens. What you see is none of your goddamn business. You made it my business when you barred that door. Samuel takes a step forward. Whatever is happening here, it stops now. The lady comes with me. The lady goes nowhere. And if you take one more step, I will put a bullet in you and claim self-defense. Your word against mine, and we both know whose word carries more weight in this valley. It is true. William Garrison has money-influenced friends in territorial politics. Samuel has 300 acres of rock and grass and a reputation for keeping to himself. If it comes down to a legal fight, there is no contest. But Samuel has spent 3 years in this country learning that sometimes the law is a luxury you cannot afford. Sometimes you have to make your own justice and live with the consequences. He takes another step forward. Garrison's thumb moves to the hammer of his revolver. Last warning. Let her go. You are a fool. Been called worse. The old man pauses, his hands trembling slightly in his lap. His grandson watches him with wide eyes. I thought he would shoot me. I could see it in his eyes, the calculation, weighing risks and benefits, measuring the cost of a killing against the inconvenience of a witness. The moment stretched like wire drawn too tight. Then she moved. The woman has been so still that Samuel almost forgot she could move. But now she lunges sideways with desperate speed, grabbing a piece of broken crate and hurling it at Garrison's gun hand. It is a wild throw, uncoordinated, but it catches him by surprise. He jerks back instinctively, and the revolver barks deafeningly loud in the enclosed space. The bullet punches into the barn's roof, sending down a shower of splinters. Samuel does not think. He charges. 3 long strides close the distance between them. He hits Garrison like a battering ram, driving his shoulder into the bigger man's chest. They go down together in a tangle of limbs and fury, crashing into the straw. The gun goes flying, spinning away into the shadows. Garrison is stronger than Samuel expected, much stronger. They roll, grappling for advantage. Garrison gets a hand around Samuel's throat and squeezes. His face contorts with rage. Samuel drives a fist into his ribs. Once. Twice. He feels something give. Hears Garrison grunt with pain. The grip on his throat loosens. Samuel tears free and rolls away, coming up in a crouch. They face each other across 3 feet of straw-littered floor, both breathing hard. Blood runs from Garrison's nose, dark in the lamplight. His expensive suit is torn and covered in dust. "You are a dead man. Do you hear me?" Dead. Samuel does not waste breath on words. Garrison lunges, telegraphing his move off balance with anger. Samuel sidesteps and brings his fist around in a short, sharp arc that connects with Garrison's jaw. The impact jars up his arm to his shoulder, but something else happens too. Something Samuel does not expect. Pain explodes in his chest. Bright and sharp and wrong. He hears a crack, feels something give way inside him. 2 ribs broken by the earlier impact when they first collided. But Garrison is falling, hitting the floor hard enough to raise dust. He does not get up. Samuel stands over him, swaying, one hand pressed to his side where fire is spreading through his chest. Every breath is agony. The world tilts, and he has to lock his knees to stay upright. Behind him, a soft voice. "You are hurt." He turns. The woman has pulled herself to her feet, one hand braced against the wall for support. She is shaking violently, her whole body trembling like a leaf in a high wind. But she is upright. She is moving. "I am fine. You are not." Her eyes meet his, and Samuel sees something shift in her expression. Recognition of what he has risked, what he has lost. For her. For a stranger. "Thank you." He wants to say something, but the words will not come. The pain in his chest is spreading, making it hard to think. Behind them, Garrison groans and stirs, pushing himself up on one elbow. This is not over. Not by a long shot. You have just signed your death warrant. Yours and hers both. Samuel looks down at the man who has caused this woman such suffering. He sees the blood, the rage, the cold calculation returning to those pale eyes. But for just a moment, just a flash, Samuel sees something else. Pain. Not physical pain from the beating. Something deeper. Something old and broken. Then it is gone, replaced by cold hatred. Samuel will remember that moment years later. Will wonder if even monsters start as men. If William Garrison was once someone like him before fear and loss twisted him into something cruel. But that is a thought for another day. Right now, they need to run. And he knows with absolute certainty that Garrison is right. This is not over. It cannot be over, not while Garrison lives, and this woman carries whatever evidence is contained in that leather envelope. "Can you walk?" The woman nods, but when she tries to take a step, her legs buckle. Samuel catches her before she falls, his arm going around her waist. The movement sends fresh pain through his broken ribs, and he has to bite back a gasp. She is lighter than he expected, and she leans against him with the desperate trust of someone who has no other choice. "Easy. I have got you." They move toward the door. Garrison is on his feet now, swaying, wiping blood from his face. He does not try to stop them. He just watches, his eyes cold and certain. He knows something Samuel is only beginning to understand. Running is not the same as escaping. They stumble out into the night air. The temperature has dropped, and Samuel can see his breath misting in the darkness. Stars are coming out overhead, cold and bright and indifferent. Copper is still there, thank God, cropping nervously at the sparse grass near the doorway. "Can you ride? I think so." Her voice is barely more than a whisper. Samuel helps her onto Copper's back, then swings up behind her. The mare shifts under their combined weight, but holds steady. Good girl. Good Copper. Behind them, from inside the barn, comes the sound of something heavy being knocked over, followed by a string of curses. Garrison is on his feet. They are out of time. Samuel kicks Copper into a trot, then a canter, then a full gallop. The woman sways in front of him, and he tightens his arm around her waist to keep her from falling. She does not protest. She just leans back against him and lets him carry her into the darkness, her fingers still locked around that leather envelope. Every stride sends pain through Samuel's broken ribs. Every breath is fire in his chest. But he does not slow down. Behind them the barn grows smaller, the lamplight fading. He keeps expecting to hear pursuit gunshots shouting the thunder of horses. But there is nothing, just the night and the stars and the woman trembling in his arms. When his cabin finally appears, a dark shape against the darker bulk of the mountains, Samuel feels something loosen in his chest that has nothing to do with broken ribs. He slows Copper to a walk for the last 100 yards, then stops in front of his door. "We are here." He slides down first, gasping at the pain the movement causes. Then he reaches up to help the woman dismount. She is shaking harder now, shock setting in. Samuel catches her as her knees give way, and for a moment they stand there, his arms around her, both of them breathing hard. Then the world tilts sideways, and Samuel realizes with distant surprise that he is falling. The old man's voice has gone soft. I do not remember hitting the ground. I remember her face above mine, her hands on my chest, her voice saying something I could not quite hear. Then, nothing. Darkness. The sweet relief of unconsciousness. When I woke, 2 hours had passed. I was lying on my own bed, my shirt cut away, strips of cloth bound tight around my ribs. The woman sat beside me, still holding that leather envelope, watching me with eyes that held gratitude and fear in equal measure. That was the first time I truly saw Margaret Ashford. Not as a victim, not as someone needing rescue, but as a person, a survivor. Someone who, despite everything that had been done to her, had found the strength to care for me while I was unconscious. I fell a little bit in love with her right then, though I would not admit it even to myself for several more days. Samuel tries to sit up. Pain explodes through his chest, and he falls back with a gasp. The woman moves quickly, placing a hand on his shoulder. "Do not move. You have broken ribs. Maybe 2 of them." Her voice is steady now, though her hands still shake. Samuel looks around his cabin, seeing it through her eyes. Small. Simple. A single room with a stone fireplace, a rough-built bed, a table and 2 chairs. Not much, but clean. His. How long was I out? 2 hours, maybe. I was not sure what to do. I thought about trying to ride for a doctor, but I did not know which direction to go, and I was afraid to leave you alone. You did right. They look at each other in the dim light from the dying fire. Up close, Samuel can see the full extent of her injuries. The swelling around her eye, the cuts on her face, the bruises forming on her throat. Someone did this to her deliberately, methodically, with purpose. Rage, hot and unexpected, floods through him. "What is your name, Margaret?" "Margaret Ashford." "But my friends call me Maggie. I am Samuel Brooks." "I know." Her lips curve in the ghost of a smile. "I have seen you at the general store in town. You are the rancher with the place up against the mountains." "That is me." A pause. Then her smile fades. "Thank you. For coming when I screamed. For not walking away." Could not walk away. Most men would have. Samuel thinks about this. About the choice he made when he heard that scream. About his father's voice in his head, teaching him lessons about duty and sacrifice and what it means to be a man worth knowing. "My father taught me that if you can help and you do not, you are just as guilty as the one causing harm. Your father sounds like a good man." The words hit Samuel harder than he expects. Memories surface unbidden. His father in uniform standing tall, despite knowing he would never return from the war. his mother's face when the telegram came, the way grief had carved her hollow over the following years until there was nothing left but an empty shell. He died at Gettysburg, trying to save his regiment. I am sorry. Samuel closes his eyes. So am I. They sit in silence for a moment, the only sound the crackle of embers in the fireplace. Then Maggie speaks again, her voice barely above a whisper. He killed my father. William Garrison. He killed him and stole our ranch, and I can prove it. She holds up the leather envelope, and in that moment Samuel understands. This is not just about tonight. This is not just about a woman being beaten in a barn. This is about murder, about justice, about something much bigger and more dangerous than he realized when he chose to answer that scream. Tell me everything. Maggie's story comes out slowly at first, then faster, the words tumbling over each other as if holding them back has cost her something precious. Samuel listens, ignoring the pain in his chest, ignoring everything except the sound of her voice and the weight of what she is telling him. Her father was Edward Ashford, a widower who came to Montana Territory 4 years ago with his daughter and a dream of building something that would last. He bought land adjacent to what would later become Garrison's property, good land with water rights and timber. He worked it honestly, built it carefully, treated his neighbors fairly. He was by all accounts a decent man. Then 6 months ago he discovered something. Copper deposits on his land, high-grade ore worth a fortune. He hired a surveyor to confirm it, wrote to a lawyer in Helena to make sure his claim would be protected, made plans to file the proper documents. And then he died. A riding accident, they said. Thrown from his horse, broke his neck, dead before anyone found him. His horse, a gentle gelding named Ranger, disappeared the same day. Ran off, they said, spooked by something. But Maggie did not believe it. Her father was the best horseman she had ever known. Ranger was the steadiest mount in the stable. And too many things did not add up. Then Garrison appeared. 3 days after the funeral, he showed up at the ranch with papers claiming Edward Ashford owed him $15,000. Promissory notes, loan documents, all bearing her father's signature. But they were forgeries. Maggie was certain of it. Her father never borrowed money. He was too proud, too careful with debt. And the signature looked wrong. The loops too wide, the slant too sharp. But without proof, she had nothing. Garrison had documents that looked legal enough to fool the sheriff. He started foreclosure proceedings. Maggie tried to fight it, but every lawyer in the territory either worked for Garrison or was too afraid to oppose him. Then 3 days ago she found the letters, hidden behind a loose stone in her father's fireplace, a leather envelope containing everything, correspondence between her father and the surveyor, letters to and from the Helena lawyer, copies of the claim documents, and most damning of all, a letter from her father written 2 weeks before his death. Maggie opens the envelope with trembling hands and pulls out a single sheet of paper. Even in the dim firelight, Samuel can see the neat, precise handwriting. She reads it aloud, and her voice breaks on every third word. If anything happens to me, William Garrison is responsible. He has made threats. He has offered money I will not take. He has suggested I might suffer an accident if I do not sell. I am writing this as testimony, as evidence, as truth. If I die before my claim is filed, know that it was murder. Protect my daughter. See that justice is done. Signed, Edward Ashford. The silence that follows is absolute. Samuel stares at the letter, at the careful words of a man who knew he was going to die and tried to leave something behind. Proof. Truth. A weapon for his daughter to wield. Garrison found out you had these. Yes. She pauses, her voice dropping. I found them 3 days ago. I should have run to Helena immediately, but I did not. I wanted to confront him first, to see his face when I told him I had proof, to watch him afraid the way he made my father afraid. Her voice cracks slightly. Pride, Mr. Brooks. My pride almost got me killed. I thought I could make him suffer before I brought him to justice. That was my mistake. Samuel sees something in her eyes, not just a victim, a flawed human being who made a dangerous choice out of anger and grief, and somehow that makes him respect her more. When did he find out 2 days ago? Maybe someone saw me searching. Maybe he had men watching. But he came to the ranch with armed men. Yes, I do not know how. Maybe someone saw me searching the house. Maybe he had someone watching me. But 2 days ago he came to the ranch with men. I ran. I thought I could hide in the old Clausen barn, then make my way to Helena when it was safe. But he followed me. He barred the door. He said I could sign over the ranch voluntarily, or he would make me sign. One way or another. And when I refused, he started hitting me. Her voice cracks on the last word. Samuel sees her walls crumbling, sees the terror and rage and grief she has been holding back finally breaking through. Tears run down her face, mixing with the dried blood. I thought I was going to die in that barn. I thought no one would come. I thought I would die alone in the dark, and he would take everything my father built, and there would be no justice, no proof, nothing. But you came. She looks at him, and Samuel sees something in her eyes that makes his broken ribs and his uncertain future seem like small prices to pay. You heard me scream, and you answered. The old man stops speaking. His grandson has tears on his face, though he does not seem to notice. The fire has burned low, casting the room in dancing shadows. What happened next? Grandpa Samuel Brooks, 88 years old, smiles. I made a choice. The same choice my father made at Gettysburg. The choice to fight for what is right, even when the cost is high. Even when you know it might kill you. I told Maggie we would take the letters to Helena, to the territorial marshal. We would see justice done. She asked me why. Why risk my life for someone I did not know? Why throw away my safety, my land, my future for her father's vendetta against a powerful man? I told her the truth, the only truth that mattered. Because somebody had to answer your scream, and I happened to be the somebody who heard it. But first, they needed the original documents. Maggie had hidden a copy sewn into the lining of her dress where no one would think to look. Smart, cautious, but a copy would not be enough to convince a territorial marshal to move against a man like William Garrison. They needed the originals, every letter, every piece of evidence, which meant going back to the Ashford Ranch, the place Garrison now considered his property, the place where his men would be watching. It was insane, suicidal even. Samuel could barely stand without pain lancing through his chest. Maggie was battered and exhausted. They had no plan, no backup, no guarantee of success. But they had truth on their side. And sometimes Samuel told himself, truth is enough. He was wrong about that, but he would not learn it until much later. They left at midnight when the moon was high and the world was painted silver and black. Samuel saddled Copper and helped Maggie up. Then he pulled himself into the saddle behind her, gritting his teeth against the pain. Every movement felt like broken glass grinding in his chest. But he did not let Maggie see. She had enough to carry without worrying about him. The ride to the Ashford Ranch took 40 minutes across rough terrain. Samuel let Copper pick her way carefully, avoiding the main trail where Garrison's men might be watching. They moved through stands of pine across creek beds dry from the autumn drought, past rock formations that rose like sleeping giants in the moonlight. Neither of them spoke. Words seemed dangerous somehow, as if they might carry on the wind and betray their presence to watching eyes. When the ranch house finally appeared through the trees, Maggie went rigid in front of Samuel. He felt the change in her body, the sudden tension, and he understood. This was her home, the place her father had built, the place where she had grown up, where her mother had died, where her childhood ended and her adult life began. And now it belonged to a murderer. My father built that house with his own hands. Every log, every stone in the foundation. He said it would stand for 100 years, said our family would grow old here. Her voice is thick with unshed tears. Samuel tightens his arm around her waist. We will get it back. Will we? He does not answer because he cannot lie to her. Not now, not about this. They approach from the east, using the outbuildings for cover. The main house is dark, no lamplight visible in any window. Good. That means Garrison is not here. Maybe he is still at the barn organizing his men. Maybe he has gone back to his own property to lick his wounds and plan his next move. Or maybe this is a trap. Samuel pushes the thought away. They are committed now, no turning back. They leave Copper tied in a grove of trees and move toward the house on foot. Every step sends pain through Samuel's ribs, but he forces himself to breathe slowly, to move carefully. Maggie leads the way, her knowledge of the property guiding them through the darkness. At the back door she pauses. Her hand trembles as she reaches for the latch. Samuel places his hand over hers. "We do not have to do this. We can turn back, find another way." She looks at him, her face pale in the moonlight. "There is no other way. You know that." He does. God help him, he does. The door opens silently. They slip inside. The house smells of wood smoke and old coffee and something else, something that might be Maggie's father's pipe tobacco still lingering months after his death. Maggie moves through the darkness with the confidence of someone who knows every floorboard, every piece of furniture, every shadow. Samuel follows, one hand on her shoulder, the other pressed to his ribs. They pass through a kitchen, a sitting room, a hallway lined with doors. Maggie stops at one, pushes it open. Her father's study. Moonlight streams through the window, illuminating a desk covered in paper shelves lined with books, a chair that still holds the shape of the man who sat there. Maggie stands in the doorway, and Samuel hears a small sound escape her, half sob, half gasp. Then she moves to the fireplace that dominates the far wall. Her hands search the stones, pressing, testing, until one shifts under her touch. She pulls it free. Behind it is a hollow space, and in that space the leather envelope. Maggie pulls it out with shaking hands, opens it, counts the documents inside. Her lips move silently, and Samuel realizes she is praying, thanking God or her father or whatever power governs this brutal world. Got them. All of them. Then a voice from behind them. "Well now, that makes things simpler." Samuel spins, ignoring the scream of pain from his ribs, and finds himself staring at a man he has never seen before. Tall, lean, hard-faced, holding a rifle pointed directly at Samuel's chest. Two more men step out of the shadows behind him, both armed. The old man's voice drops to a whisper. His name was Dalton Reed, Garrison's foreman, the man who actually carried out most of Garrison's dirty work. And he had been waiting for us. Of course he had. Garrison was not stupid. He knew Maggie would come back for the letters. He had left men watching the house, waiting for exactly this. We were idiots. Desperate, exhausted idiots who walked right into the trap. Reed smiles. It is not a kind smile. "Miss Ashford, Mr. Brooks, Mr. Garrison sends his regards. He would like those papers back now." Samuel moves without thinking, stepping between Reed and Maggie. His hands are empty. His gun is back at the cabin. He has nothing to fight with except his body and his refusal to surrender. "You will have to go through me." Reed's smile widens. "That can be arranged." One of the other men shifts position, bringing his rifle to bear. Samuel sees the movement, sees the finger tightening on the trigger, and knows he is about to die. He has time for one thought, clear and simple. "I am sorry, Maggie. I tried." Then two things happen at once. First, a gunshot splits the night. But it does not come from Reed or his men. It comes from behind them, from somewhere deeper in the house. Second, an old man's voice, loud and commanding. That will be enough of that. Everyone freezes. Through the door behind Reed walks Thomas Patterson, 73 years old, white-haired, carrying a double-barreled shotgun that looks older than Montana Territory itself. His wife Elizabeth appears beside him, also armed, her face set in lines of determination. Reed spins his rifle, swinging toward this new threat. But Patterson's shotgun is already aimed at Reed's chest, and at this range there is no missing. "Put the rifles down, boys, nice and slow." Reed's eyes narrow. "This does not concern you, old man. The hell it does not. Edward Ashford saved my son from drowning 15 years ago. I owe that man a debt, and I will not stand by while you murder his daughter and the man who tried to protect her." One of Reed's men looks nervous. The other keeps his rifle trained on Samuel. Reed himself seems to be calculating odds. Patterson chambers a shell with a sound like bones breaking. "I said put them down." For a long moment the world hangs in balance. Then Reed very slowly lowers his rifle. His men follow suit. Smart choice. Patterson nods to Elizabeth, who moves forward and collects the weapons. Now you three are going to walk out that door and keep walking. And if I see you on this property again, I will shoot you. Clear Garrison will hear about this. I am counting on it. Tell him Thomas Patterson is done being afraid of him. Tell him the whole valley is done being afraid. Reed's face twists with rage, but he knows he is beaten. For now. He gestures to his men and they back toward the door, hands raised. Reed pauses in the doorway looking at Samuel. You are both dead. Garrison does not forgive. He does not forget. Then he is gone and the three men disappear into the night. The silence that follows is absolute. Then Maggie starts to laugh. It is not a happy sound. It is the laughter of someone who has been pushed too far, who has seen too much, who cannot quite believe they are still alive. Samuel catches her as her knees buckle. Patterson and Elizabeth move to help, their faces concerned. The girl needs rest, food, safety. Can you provide that? Samuel looks at Maggie at the leather envelope still clutched in her hands at the future they are both racing toward, and he knows the answer. No, not here. We have to leave. Tonight. Garrison will come with more men. Then you had better ride fast. Patterson presses something into Samuel's hand. A small pouch heavy with coins. Take it. You will need money for supplies. For bribing people if it comes to that. I cannot accept this. You can, and you will. Edward was a good man. You honor his memory by protecting his daughter. Now go. Before Reed comes back with reinforcements. They leave through the back door, moving quickly. Copper is where they left her, cropping grass unbothered by the chaos of human conflict. Samuel helps Maggie into the saddle, then pulls himself up behind her. The pouch of coins weighs heavy in his pocket. The leather envelope presses against Maggie's chest, still safe. As they ride away from the Ashford Ranch, Maggie looks back one last time. I will never live there again, will I? Samuel considers lying, considers offering false comfort. But Maggie deserves truth. Probably not. Too many ghosts. She nods slowly. Good. I do not want ghosts. I want justice. They ride in silence after that, pushing Copper hard. Behind them the ranch house grows smaller, fading into memory. Ahead the night stretches vast and uncertain. And somewhere in that darkness William Garrison is gathering his forces. They are 3 miles from Samuel's cabin when they see the lights. Torches. Not just 6 or 8, but 12. Garrison has called in men from town, from surrounding properties, from wherever he keeps the kind of people willing to commit murder for money. The hunt has begun in earnest. Samuel urges Copper into a gallop, racing the torches toward some imagined safety. Maggie clings to the saddle, to the envelope, to hope itself. The wind tears at their clothes. The night swallows their fear. But the torches are getting closer. The old man stops speaking. In the present, in the warm cabin in 2024, he opens his eyes and looks at his grandson. That was the moment we truly understood what we had gotten ourselves into. Not a simple matter of justice versus injustice. Not a heroic rescue followed by a clean ending. But something messier, harder, more complicated than either of us could have imagined. We were being hunted, and if we were caught, we would die. Simple as that. But we had the letters. We had proof. And we had each other. The old man's voice grows soft, distant. Sometimes that is enough. Not always, but sometimes. The fire crackles. Snow falls against the window, and the story for now pauses between heartbeats, between one breath and the next, between the past and whatever comes after. The torches grow brighter in the darkness behind them. Samuel counts them as Copper races through the night. 12 flames bobbing and weaving like fireflies, except these fireflies carry death. Each torch represents a man willing to kill for William Garrison's money. Each flame is a promise of what will happen if they are caught. Maggie's body is rigid in front of him, her breath coming in short gasps. The leather envelope presses between them, a thin barrier of paper and ink that somehow contains the difference between justice and murder going unpunished. Samuel's broken ribs scream with every stride. Each impact sends lightning through his chest. But he does not slow down, cannot slow down. The mathematics are simple and brutal. If they stop, they die. Your cabin. Can we defend it? Maggie's voice cuts through the wind, practical despite the fear Samuel can hear underneath. He thinks about his small cabin. 1 door, 2 windows, wood walls that would stop arrows, but not bullets. Against 12 armed men it would be a coffin, not a fortress. No, we keep moving. Where north? Toward Helena. Toward the territorial marshal and whatever justice we can find there. That is 7 days' ride. Then we ride for 7 days. They will catch us long before that. Samuel tightens his arm around her waist. Maybe, but they will have to catch us first. The old man's voice carries across the decades, heavy with memory. Copper ran for 2 hours that night, ran until her flanks were lathered and her breath came in great heaving gasps, ran until I thought her heart might burst. But she kept going, that brave mare. She carried us through darkness and fear and the weight of impossible odds. When we finally had to stop, when Copper simply could not take another step, we were 15 miles from my cabin. The torches had fallen behind, but we knew they were still coming. Garrison would not give up. Men like him never do. We found a creek and a stand of cottonwoods and let Copper drink. Maggie slid from the saddle and immediately collapsed. I caught her before she hit the ground, but the movement sent such pain through my ribs that I nearly went down too. We were both shaking, both at the end of our strength, and the night was only beginning. Samuel helps Maggie to a fallen log and eases her down. She sits there, swaying slightly, her eyes unfocused. The moonlight shows the damage more clearly now. Her face is a canvas of bruises painted in shades of purple and yellow. Blood has dried in dark trails from her nose and mouth, but it is her hands that catch Samuel's attention. They are still locked around the leather envelope, her knuckles white, her fingers cramped into claws. She has been holding it so tightly for so long that her body has forgotten how to let go. Maggie. He speaks softly, the way you would to a spooked horse. You can put it down, just for a moment. She looks at the envelope as if seeing it for the first time. Then she shakes her head, a quick, violent motion. No. If I put it down, I might lose it. Or someone might take it. Or I might wake up and find this was all a dream, and my father is still dead, and there is no proof, and no hope, and nothing. Her voice rises with each word teetering on the edge of hysteria. Samuel kneels in front of her, ignoring the protest from his ribs, and places his hands over hers. Look at me. Look at my eyes, not the envelope. She does slowly. Her pupils are blown wide, shock setting in deep. Your father is dead. That is true, but the proof is real. You are holding it. And as long as you are with me, no one will take it. I swear that to you. How can you promise that, because I have already broken 2 ribs keeping that promise? And I will break the rest if I have to. Something in her face shifts. The hysteria recedes, replaced by something steadier. She nods once slowly, and her grip on the envelope loosens. Just slightly. Just enough. Samuel pulls a canteen from Copper's saddle and offers it to her. Drink. Small sips. While she drinks, he examines their situation with the cold practicality that 3 years of frontier living has taught him. They are 15 miles from his cabin, which means nothing because they cannot go back there. Garrison's men will be watching it. They are on foot now effectively because Copper needs rest or she will die. They have no food beyond what is in his saddlebags, which is next to nothing. No blankets, no shelter, and somewhere behind them 12 men with torches are following their trail. The math is bad, getting worse by the minute. Samuel. Maggie's voice pulls him back. Your side. You are bleeding. He looks down. She is right. A dark stain has spread across his shirt just below his ribs. Not from the ribs themselves, but from something else. He lifts the fabric carefully and finds a gash he does not remember receiving. Probably from when he and Garrison went down together in the barn. A piece of broken wood or a nail, not deep but long, and bleeding steadily. It is nothing. It is not nothing. Maggie stands swaying but determined. Take off your shirt. I am fine. Take off your shirt or I will cut it off. There is steel in her voice now. Samuel recognizes the tone. It is the voice of someone who has decided to stop being a victim and start being a survivor. He has heard that transformation before in other people. It usually happens right after they realize that no one is coming to save them. that they have to save themselves. He removes his shirt, wincing at the movement. Maggie tears strips from her already damaged dress and uses the creek water to clean the wound. Her hands are steady despite everything. When she wraps the makeshift bandage around his torso, her fingers brush against his broken ribs. He hisses through his teeth, "You need a doctor. We both need a lot of things we are not going to get." He pulls his shirt back on. "Right now, we need to move. They will find this creek eventually. Track us here by Copper's hoofprints. Can she carry us?" "Not yet. We walk. Lead her. Give her time to recover." Maggie looks at the darkness beyond the cottonwoods, at the mountains rising like black walls against the stars. "Walk where?" "Away from here. Toward the mountains. There is a trading post about 30 miles north, run by a man named Joe Crawford. If we can reach it, we can get supplies. Fresh horses, maybe. 30 miles. On foot." Samuel does not answer. The number speaks for itself. They walk through what remains of the night. Samuel leads Copper and Maggie walks beside him, her hand occasionally touching his arm as if to reassure herself that he is still there. Neither speaks. The darkness and their exhaustion make words feel like luxury items they cannot afford. Samuel's ribs grind with every step. The wound in his side throbs in rhythm with his heartbeat. His vision swims occasionally, black spots dancing at the edges. He wonders distantly if he is going into shock, if his body is starting to shut down from pain and blood loss and the simple impossibility of what they are attempting. But he keeps walking, because the alternative is lying down and waiting to die, and he is not ready for that. Not yet. Beside him, Maggie stumbles. He catches her elbow, steadying her. She mumbles something that might be thank you or might be a curse. He cannot tell. The old man's voice drifts through time. "That walk was the longest of my life. Every mile felt like 10. Every hour stretched into eternity. My body was screaming at me to stop, to rest, to give up. But every time I thought about stopping, I would look at Maggie, at this woman who had been beaten and terrorized and had every reason to collapse, and she was still moving, still fighting. If she could keep going, so could I." Pride is a strange fuel. It burns hot, and it burns clean, and it will carry you further than you think possible. But eventually, it runs out. For me, it ran out as the sun was rising over the mountains. Samuel does not remember falling. One moment he is walking, leading Copper through a grove of aspen trees, their leaves golden against the dawn sky. The next moment he is on the ground, staring up at those same leaves through vision that has gone gray and distant. Maggie's face appears above him. Her mouth is moving, but he cannot hear the words. There is a roaring in his ears like rushing water, like the world ending, like everything that matters draining away through a hole he cannot see. Her hands are on his chest. She is crying. He wants to tell her not to cry, that crying wastes water, and they do not have water to spare, but his mouth will not form the words. Then the world goes black, and he falls into it gratefully. When consciousness returns, it comes in pieces. First sound, birds calling, Copper's quiet breathing, Maggie's voice low and fierce. "You do not get to die. Do you hear me? You do not get to leave me alone out here." Then sensation, warmth against his skin, sunlight, something soft beneath his head, then smell, pine, creek water, and something else, something metallic and wrong, blood. Samuel opens his eyes. The world swims into focus slowly, reluctantly. He is lying on the ground beneath an aspen tree. His head rests on Maggie's folded dress. She kneels beside him in her underthings, her face pale but determined. Her hands press a cloth to his side where the wound has opened again and bled through the bandage. "You fainted." She says it like an accusation. "You walked yourself into unconsciousness, and then you had the audacity to faint." "Sorry. You should be. I am not strong enough to carry you, and I am not leaving you here. So you are going to wake up, and you are going to get back on that horse, and you are going to stay conscious until we reach the Crawford place." "Do you understand?" Samuel manages a weak smile. "Bossy. You have no idea." She helps him sit up. The world tilts alarmingly, but he breathes through it, forcing his vision to clear. His side is on fire. His ribs feel like they are made of broken glass. But he is alive, still breathing, still fighting. How long was I out? Maybe 2 hours. I tried to wake you, but you were too far gone. She gestures to Copper. I got you into some shade, changed your bandage, fed the mare the last of the grain from your saddlebags. Samuel looks around, assessing their position with a part of his mind that still functions. They are in a small clearing beside a creek. Good defensive position, water nearby, but dangerously exposed to anyone tracking them. We need to move. I know. She stands, offering him her hand. Can you ride? He wants to say yes. Wants to be strong and capable in everything a man is supposed to be. But lying will not help them now. I do not know. Then we are going to find out. Getting into the saddle is an exercise in agony. Samuel tries 3 times before he finally makes it, and by the end he is gasping, tears running down his face from pain he cannot control. Maggie watches with eyes that hold sympathy and something else, something harder. When he is finally mounted, swaying but upright, she pulls herself up behind him. Her arms wrap around his waist, holding him steady. Her cheek presses against his back. I will not let you fall. Promise. Promise. They ride at a walk, Samuel clinging to consciousness through sheer will. Maggie keeps one hand pressed against his chest, feeling his heartbeat, monitoring him for signs of fading. Copper picks her way carefully, as if she understands how fragile her riders have become. The sun climbs higher. The morning grows warm. Samuel's vision swims in and out of focus, but Maggie's presence behind him keeps him anchored. Her breathing, her warmth, the steady pressure of her hand. Time loses meaning. He cannot tell if they have been riding for minutes or hours. The landscape changes around them, mountains giving way to rolling foothills, forest to open meadow, but it all feels distant, unreal. Then Maggie's voice close to his ear. Samuel, stay with me. We are almost there, almost where the trading post. I can see the smoke from the chimney. Samuel forces his eyes to focus. There, perhaps 2 miles ahead, a thin column of smoke rises into the blue sky. Civilization. Help. Hope. Or another trap. The Crawford Trading Post sits in a small valley where 2 creeks meet, a ramshackle collection of buildings that looks like it grew organically from the landscape rather than being built by human hands. The main structure is logs and stone, with smaller outbuildings scattered around it like children around a mother. A corral holds a few horses. Chickens scratch in the dirt. Smoke rises from a stone chimney. It looks peaceful, safe. Samuel does not trust it. They approach slowly, Samuel forcing himself to sit upright, despite the pain, trying to look like something other than a dying man and a battered woman fleeing for their lives. When they are 50 yards out, the door of the main building opens and a man steps out. Joe Crawford is perhaps 55 years old, built broad and strong, with a gray-streaked beard and eyes that have seen enough of human nature to be surprised by very little. He watches them approach with his hand resting casually on the revolver at his hip. Samuel Brooks, his voice carries across the distance. Thought you would be holed up on that ranch of yours till spring. Plans changed. They ride into the yard. Up close, Samuel can see Joe's eyes taking in the details. Maggie's bruised face, Samuel's blood-stained shirt, the exhaustion radiating from both of them like heat from a fire. Joe's expression hardens. What kind of trouble are you bringing to my door? Samuel opens his mouth to answer, but before he can speak, the world tilts sideways and he slides from the saddle. He hits the ground hard, the impact driving the air from his lungs. Through dimming vision, he sees Maggie jumping down beside him, sees Joe running over, hears voices but cannot make out words. Then darkness again, welcoming, complete. The old man pauses in his telling. In the present, in the warm cabin, he takes a sip of water with trembling hands. I thought that was the end. Thought I had pushed my body too far, and it was finally giving out. I remember thinking with strange clarity that at least Maggie was safe now, that Joe Crawford was a good man and he would help her. I remember hoping that would be enough. But the story was not over. Not even close. Samuel wakes in a bed, an actual bed with a mattress and blankets and pillows that smell of soap and sunlight. For a moment, he thinks he is dead, and this is heaven. Then pain crashes over him like a wave, and he knows he is very much alive. The dead do not hurt like this. He opens his eyes. He is in a small room, walls made of unfinished logs, a single window showing afternoon light. Bandages wrap his torso, clean white cloth that someone has applied with skill and care. His broken ribs are bound tight. The wound in his side has been stitched. Beside the bed sits Maggie. She has washed her face, though the bruises remain. She wears a clean dress too large for her, probably borrowed from Ruth Crawford. Her hair is pulled back in a simple braid, and she is watching him with eyes that hold relief and anger in equal measure. "You almost died." Her voice is flat, controlled, like she is working very hard not to scream. But I did not. Only because Ruth Crawford knows how to treat infection. Another day, and you would have been too far gone. Samuel processes this. Another day. How long have I been unconscious? 2 days. 2 days. 48 hours lost. 48 hours that Garrison has been using to organize his hunt. Samuel tries to sit up, and Maggie's hand on his chest stops him. Do not even think about it. Ruth said you need at least 3 more days of rest before you can ride. We do not have 3 days. I know. Maggie's voice cracks slightly. I know we do not have time. I know Garrison is coming. I know every hour we stay here puts the Crawfords in danger. But you are no good to anyone dead, Samuel. And if you try to ride now, you will die. Your body will simply give up. Samuel looks at her face, at the fear barely controlled beneath her practical words, and he understands something he has been too stubborn to admit. This is no longer just about him being a hero, about him saving her. This has become something else, something mutual. She needs him alive, not just as a protector, but as a partner, as someone who will not abandon her, and he needs her the same way. Where is Joe? Downstairs. He wants to talk to you when you are awake. About what? About whether he is going to help us or turn us over to Garrison. Joe Crawford sits at a rough wooden table in the main room of the trading post, a cup of coffee steaming in front of him. His wife Ruth works at the counter, measuring out flour, but Samuel can tell she is listening. Every word, every nuance. Samuel sits across from Joe, moving slowly, every breath careful. Maggie stands behind him, one hand on his shoulder, ready to catch him if he falls. Joe looks at them both for a long moment. Then he speaks, his voice measured. Tell me the truth, all of it, because I need to decide if helping you is justice or suicide. Samuel tells him, everything. The scream in the twilight, Garrison in the barn, the letters, Edward Ashford's murder, the flight through the night. He leaves nothing out. Every detail laid bare. When he finishes, Joe sits back in his chair. His face is unreadable. William Garrison is a powerful man. He has friends, money, influence. You are asking me to make an enemy of him. I am not asking anything. We need supplies. I have money. Samuel pulls out Thomas Patterson's pouch of coins. I will pay fair price. Then we leave, and you never saw us. Joe looks at the money, at Samuel, at Maggie, then at his wife. Ruth Crawford sets down her measuring cup and comes to stand beside her husband. She is perhaps 50 years old, weathered by frontier life, but unbowed by it. When she speaks, her voice is firm. Edward Ashford lent us money 5 years ago when this store was failing, did not charge interest, just said pay him back when we could. Her eyes meet Maggie's. Your father was a good man, the best kind of man, and I will be damned if I let his daughter die because I was too afraid of William Garrison. Joe looks at his wife. Then he sighs, a sound that carries the weight of a difficult decision made. All right, we help, but not just with supplies. He stands and moves to the window, looking out at the afternoon sun. You two cannot make it to Helena like this. Brooks is in no shape to ride hard, and Garrison has men everywhere. You need better horses. You need a plan. We have a plan. Ride to Helena. Find the marshal. That is not a plan. That is a wish. Joe turns back to them. The main freight road to Helena runs through Cutler's Valley. It is well-traveled, lots of witnesses. Garrison's men will not risk making a move on you there. Too many people would see. But to get to the freight road you have to cross the high passes. Rough country. Easy to ambush. So what do we do? Joe walks to a shelf and pulls down a hand-drawn map. He spreads it on the table. There is another way. North Ridge Trail runs along the high country for about 20 miles before dropping into Cutler's Valley. Dangerous. Steep. But if you can make it, you will come out on the freight road with clear sailing to Helena. Samuel studies the map. The North Ridge Trail is marked in faint pencil, winding through mountains like a thread through a needle's eye. It looks treacherous. The kind of path you take only when every other option is worse. How long? 2 days to reach the trail. 1 day on the trail itself if the weather holds. Then another day to Helena. 4 days total. If you are lucky. Joe's eyes are serious. If you are not lucky, Garrison catches you in the high country and no one ever finds your bodies. Maggie leans forward studying the map. What about his men? If they are tracking us, will they not follow us onto the trail? They might. But the trail is narrow, 1 horse at a time in places, hard to bring a large group through. If they follow you, they will have to split up. Joe looks at Samuel. Can you fight if you have to? Samuel thinks about his broken ribs, his stitched wound, his body that feels like it is held together with string and prayer. If I have to. Joe nods slowly. Then here is what we do. I have 2 horses I have been trying to sell. Good animals, strong backs, sure feet. You can take them. Leave yours here to rest. When you come back through, we will settle up. I cannot accept that. Yes, you can. And you will. Ruth moves to stand beside Joe. Because if you do not make it to Helena, if Garrison wins, then men like him will keep winning. And I am tired of living in a world where bullies and murderers get away with it because good people are too afraid to fight back. They spend the rest of the day at the trading post. Ruth feeds them soup and bread, the first real meal Samuel has had in days. She changes his bandages, clucking her tongue at the state of his injuries. She gives Maggie a proper dress that fits and a coat for the cold nights ahead. Joe packs saddlebags with food ammunition for Samuel's revolver grain for the horses. As the sun begins to set, Joe brings around the 2 horses he spoke of. A bay gelding named Flint, powerful and steady, and a dappled gray mare called Silver, with the smoothest gait Samuel has ever seen. Flint has a hard mouth. He will run all day if you let him. Joe pats the gelding's neck. Silver is for the lady. She will not spook at anything. Samuel walks around the horses, checking their legs, their hooves, their eyes. They are good animals. Better than Copper, though it feels like betrayal to admit it. These horses might actually get them to Helena alive. We leave at first light then. Joe nods. I will have them saddled and ready. He pauses, then adds quietly, There is one more thing. I heard from a traveler this morning. Garrison has put out a bounty. $500 for you dead or alive. $1,000 for Miss Ashford and those letters. Samuel's stomach drops. That kind of money will bring every desperate man in the territory. How many men is he likely to get? Hard to say. Maybe a dozen, maybe more. A dozen men. Hunting them. For money. The odds were bad before. Now they are worse. That night Samuel lies in the small bed, trying to will his body to heal faster. Maggie sleeps in the room next door. He can hear her moving restlessly, the bed creaking. After an hour, he hears her door open. Footsteps in the hall, then a soft knock on his door. Samuel. He sits up carefully. Come in. She enters wrapped in a blanket, her face pale in the moonlight from the window. I cannot sleep. Every time I close my eyes, I see Garrison, or I see those torches, or I see you falling from your horse. Her voice breaks. I keep seeing you dead, Samuel, and I cannot bear it. I am not dead, not yet. She sits on the edge of the bed. But tomorrow we ride into the mountains with a dozen men hunting us, and you can barely stand without pain. And I keep thinking, what if this is our last night alive? What if tomorrow is the day we die? Samuel reaches out and takes her hand. Then we make tonight count. She looks at him, questions in her eyes. He answers them the only way he knows how. With truth. I heard you scream, and I chose to answer. I broke my ribs fighting for you. I have ridden until my body gave out. I have put Joe and Ruth in danger. I have thrown away my future and probably my life, and I do not regret a single moment of it. Do you know why? Why? Because in 3 days I have felt more alive than in 3 years of solitude. Because you are brave and fierce, and you refuse to break even when you have every reason to. Because when you look at me, I feel like I am someone worth saving, someone worth knowing. He pauses, then says the words he has been avoiding since that first night in his cabin. I am falling in love with you, Margaret Ashford, and even if we die tomorrow, I need you to know that. Tears run down her face, silver in the moonlight. She does not speak. Instead, she leans forward and kisses him. It is not the desperate kiss of two people facing death. It is something gentler, slower, a promise of something that might bloom if they can survive long enough to let it. When she pulls back, she is smiling through her tears. You do not get to die tomorrow, Samuel Brooks, because I am falling in love with you too. And I want to see where this goes. She lies down beside him, still wrapped in her blanket, her head on his shoulder. He puts his arm around her, ignoring the protest from his ribs. They lie there in the darkness, two people on the edge of everything, holding on to each other like drowning people hold on to driftwood. And for a few hours the world is just this, just breathing and warmth and the fragile hope that tomorrow might not be their last day. They leave at dawn when the mountains are still dark against a lightning sky. Joe and Ruth stand in the yard watching them prepare. Neither speaks. There is nothing left to say that has not been said. Samuel mounts Flint with Ruth's help, and the movement is slightly easier than yesterday. The horse stands rock steady, as if he understands the importance of not throwing his damaged rider. Maggie swings onto Silver with the easy grace of someone who grew up in the saddle. Joe hands up the packed saddlebags. Be careful on the Northridge Trail. There are places where the path is barely wide enough for one horse. One wrong step and you are falling 500 feet. Comforting. Just being honest. Joe steps back. Godspeed to you both. They ride out of the valley as the sun breaks over the mountains, painting the world in gold and crimson. Samuel looks back once and sees Joe and Ruth still standing there watching. Two good people who chose to help when they could have turned away. He wonders if he will ever see them again, if any of them will survive what is coming. The ride through the foothills is uneventful at first. They make good time, the horses fresh and strong. Samuel's body protests every movement, but the pain has become almost manageable, almost familiar. He has learned to breathe around his broken ribs, to move in ways that minimize the agony. They pass through stands of pine and aspen across meadows where late-season wildflowers bloom in defiant purples and reds. They see deer watching them from the tree line. An eagle circles overhead riding thermals. The land is beautiful in the way that wild places are beautiful, indifferent to human suffering, unconcerned with justice or injustice, simply existing. Around midday they stop at a creek to let the horses drink and rest. Maggie unpacks bread and cheese from the saddlebags. They eat in silence, too focused on the food to waste energy on words. Samuel is finishing his meal when he sees it. Movement on the ridgeline behind them, perhaps a mile back. Riders, at least 3, maybe more. Too far to identify, but the timing is wrong for coincidence. We have company. Maggie follows his gaze. Her face goes pale. Garrison's men? Probably. Samuel stands wincing. We need to move. Now. They ride faster after that, pushing the horses harder than Samuel wants to, but the riders behind them are closing the distance, slowly, steadily, like wolves running down wounded prey. By mid-afternoon the terrain has changed dramatically. They have climbed into the mountains proper now, following a trail that switchbacks up steep slopes covered in loose scree. The air is thinner here, colder. Samuel can see his breath when he exhales. The riders behind them are closer now. 5 of them Samuel counts. Armed, organized. They are not even trying to hide anymore. They know their quarry is wounded and desperate. The trap is closing. Samuel. Maggie's voice is tight with fear. There are more. Ahead of us. She is right. On a parallel ridge, perhaps half a mile to their left, 3 more riders are moving, not pursuing but pacing them, herding them. They are being driven, pushed toward something. Somewhere these men want them to go. What do we do? Samuel scans the terrain with desperate eyes, looking for any option that does not end with them surrounded and killed. And there, barely visible through a gap in the rocks, he sees it. A ravine, narrow, steep, probably deadly. But it leads away from the direction their pursuers are pushing them. There. He points. That ravine. It is our only chance. That is insane. Maggie stares at the narrow slash in the earth. We could fall. The horses could break their legs. And if we keep going this way, we ride straight into an ambush. Samuel turns Flint toward the ravine. Insane is riding into a trap. Trust me. Maggie looks at him for a long moment. Then she smiles, fierce and wild. I do. They kick their horses into a gallop and race for the ravine. Behind them, shouts echo off the mountains as their pursuers realize they have broken the pattern. Samuel hears gunshots, but the bullets go wide. Too far for accurate shooting on horseback. The ravine mouth yawns before them, dark and threatening. Samuel does not slow down. He drives Flint straight into it, trusting the horse to find footing, trusting luck and whatever gods watch over fools and desperate men. The walls close around them, rock pressing in from both sides. The floor is uneven, covered in loose stones that shift under the horse's hooves. Flint picks his way carefully, ears flat against his head. Behind them, Silver follows Maggie, bent low over her neck. The ravine twists and turns, dropping steeply. Samuel has to dismount and lead Flint through the worst sections, each step sending fire through his ribs. Maggie does the same with Silver, and they descend together, 2 people and 2 horses threading through stone like thread through a needle. Above them, they hear voices. Their pursuers have reached the ravine mouth, but the opening is too narrow for multiple horses. They will have to come through single file. That buys time. Not much, but maybe enough. The old man's voice grows softer, more distant. That ravine saved our lives. It was treacherous and terrifying, and I was certain we would fall to our deaths at every step. But it took us down the mountain and spat us out in a thick forest of lodgepole pine, far from where our pursuers expected us to be. We had broken the trap, for now, but the cost was high. We were off Joe Crawford's map now, and country neither of us knew. And behind us, Garrison's men were regrouping, spreading out, hunting. The chase was far from over. They emerge from the ravine into a dense forest as the sun begins its descent toward the western peaks. Samuel's whole body is shaking with exhaustion and pain. Beside him, Maggie looks equally spent, her face drawn and pale. But they are alive, still moving, still fighting. They ride deeper into the forest, putting distance between themselves and the ravine. When they finally stop in a small clearing beside a stream, both of them slide from their saddles and simply sit on the ground, too tired to do anything else. Samuel lies back on the soft pine needles and stares up at the canopy above. Fragments of sky show through the branches, impossibly blue. A squirrel scolds them from a nearby tree. The stream gurgles over stones. Normal sounds, peaceful sounds, as if men are not hunting them, as if death is not lurking somewhere in these mountains. Maggie crawls over to him and lies down beside him, her head on his shoulder. Neither speaks. There is nothing to say that would change anything. They are lost, exhausted, hunted, but they are together, and somehow that makes it bearable. They rest for an hour. Then, as the light begins to fail, they force themselves to move again. Samuel checks the position of the sun, tries to orient himself. North. They need to keep heading north. Eventually they will hit the freight road or a settlement or something. They have ridden perhaps 2 miles when Samuel hears it. The crack of a branch, the sound of voices carrying through the trees. He pulls Flint to a stop, raises a hand to signal Maggie. Behind them, maybe 300 yards. How many Samuel strains to listen? At least 4, maybe more. They urge the horses forward, trying to move quietly, but the forest floor is carpeted with pine needles and dry branches. Every step seems to announce their presence. The voices grow louder, closer. Then through a gap in the trees, Samuel sees them. 5 riders spread out in a loose search pattern. One of them points in their direction. Shouts. Ride. They break into a gallop, weaving between trees. Behind them, the pursuit explodes into action. Hoofbeats thunder. Men shout orders. A gunshot cracks through the forest, the bullet striking a tree trunk inches from Samuel's head. The forest thins ahead, opening into a rocky clearing dotted with boulders. Samuel makes a split-second decision. There. Behind those rocks. They dismount at full speed, Samuel crying out as the impact jars his broken ribs. They drag the horses behind a cluster of large boulders, taking cover just as their pursuers burst into the clearing. 5 men rein in their horses, scanning the rocks. Samuel recognizes none of them. Bounty hunters, desperate men drawn by Garrison's money. Know they're here somewhere. Fan out. Samuel draws his revolver, checks the cylinder. 4 rounds left. Not enough. Not nearly enough. Beside him, Maggie clutches Ruth Crawford's small pistol. Her hands shake. Her face is pale. I don't know if I can do this. Samuel meets her eyes. You don't have to. I can. No. She cuts him off, her voice suddenly firm. I'm not hiding while you fight. Not anymore. One of the men dismounts, rifle in hand, and begins moving toward their position. He is perhaps 20 yards away. Closing. Samuel. Maggie's whisper is urgent. I'm scared. So am I. The man is 15 yards away now. 10. Samuel prepares to fire. His hand is steady despite the fear coursing through him. This is it. This is where they make their stand. Then Maggie whispers so quiet Samuel almost misses it. I'm sorry, Father, for what I'm about to do. The man steps around, a boulder rifle raised. He sees them. His finger moves to the trigger. Maggie fires. The shot echoes across the clearing like thunder. The man jerks backward, his rifle discharging into the air. He clutches his shoulder, blood blooming dark between his fingers, and falls. For a moment, everything stops. The other 4 men freeze, startled by the sudden violence. Maggie stares at the gun in her hand, at the man writhing on the ground, at what she has just done. Her hands begin to shake violently. The pistol slips from her fingers. I shot him. Her voice is barely a whisper. I shot him. I shot someone. Samuel grabs her shoulders. You saved us. That man was about to kill me. You saved my life. But I hurt him. I hurt someone. I didn't want to. I never wanted. The other men have recovered from their shock. They open fire, bullets striking the rocks around them with sharp cracks. Samuel returns fire, forcing them to take cover. We have to move. Now. But Maggie is frozen, staring at her hands as if they belong to someone else. Samuel can see the shock setting in, the weight of what she has done crushing down on her. Maggie. He makes her look at him. I know what this costs. I know you didn't want this, but we're alive because of you. Do you hear me? We're alive. The man I shot is alive. You hit his shoulder. He'll survive, but we won't if we stay here. The words seem to penetrate. Maggie nods slowly and picks up the pistol with shaking hands. They mount their horses and ride hard, leaving the clearing behind. Samuel can hear the men shouting, reorganizing, but they have gained precious seconds. Maybe enough. As full darkness falls, they see it. Smoke. Rising through the trees, perhaps 2 miles to the east. Smoke means fire. Fire means people. People could mean help. Or danger. No way to know which without investigating. Samuel looks at Maggie. Her face is a pale blur in the darkness. What do you think? I think we do not have much choice. We need food, shelter. You need proper medical care. Could be Garrison's men. Could be. Or could be homesteaders who have never heard of William Garrison. She urges Silver forward. Only one way to find out. They ride toward the smoke with every sense alert, ready to bolt at the first sign of danger. As they get closer, details emerge. A small homestead, 1 main house, a barn, a corral with horses. Lamplight glows in the windows. Samuel dismounts in a grove of trees about 100 yards from the house and hands Flint's reins to Maggie. "Stay here. Let me scout it first. Be careful." He moves through the darkness on foot, using the trees for cover. His body protests every step, but he ignores it. Up ahead he can see the house more clearly now. Smoke rises from a stone chimney. Someone is cooking dinner. He can smell meat and potatoes. Samuel circles around to a window and peers carefully inside. What he sees makes his blood turn to ice. Sitting at a table eating dinner with an elderly couple is Dalton Reed, William Garrison's foreman, the man who had held a rifle on them at the Ashford Ranch, and there on the table beside Reed's plate is the leather envelope. Samuel stands frozen at the window, staring at the impossible. The leather envelope, right there on the table. All of Edward Ashford's carefully preserved evidence, all the proof of Garrison's crimes sitting beside Dalton Reed's dinner plate like it belongs there. His mind races backward, trying to understand. They had the envelope. Maggie was carrying it. She had it when they fled into the ravine. She had it when they emerged into the forest. She had it, except she did not. The realization hits him like a physical blow. At some point during their desperate descent through the ravine, when they were dismounting and remounting, leading the horses through impossible terrain, the envelope must have slipped from her saddlebag, fallen onto stone, been left behind, and Garrison's men following their trail found it. Everything they have sacrificed, everything they have suffered, the broken ribs and the beatings and the endless running, all for nothing, because they lost the one thing that mattered. Samuel leans against the wall of the house, fighting the urge to simply collapse, to give up, to let the darkness take him and be done with it. Then he remembers Maggie's voice. "You do not get to die tomorrow, Samuel Brooks." And he remembers something else, something she told him that first night in his cabin. "I made a copy, a summary of the key facts. It is hidden somewhere they will not think to look. The copy, sewn into the lining of her dress. They still have that. It is not the originals, not the smoking gun they need, but it is something, a thread of hope in a tapestry of despair." Samuel forces himself to breathe, to think, to plan. He watches through the window as Reed talks with the elderly couple, an old man and woman, both gray-haired and weathered. The man has kind eyes. The woman keeps refilling Reed's coffee cup with the automatic hospitality of people raised to welcome strangers. They do not know who Reed is, do not know they are feeding dinner to a man who would murder them without hesitation if it served his purpose. Samuel sees Reed say something, sees the old woman laugh, sees the old man pass a basket of bread. Normal, peaceful, as if the envelope on that table does not contain evidence of murder. He needs that envelope. Even if they have the copy, having both would be better, would be undeniable. But getting it means going through Reed, means fighting. And Samuel is in no shape to fight anyone, unless he is not alone. Samuel makes his way back to where Maggie waits with the horses. She sees his face and goes pale. "What is it?" "What did you see, Reed?" Dalton Reed, having dinner inside. Her face crumbles. "And the envelope." He has the envelope. Maggie makes a sound like a wounded animal. "All of it. We have lost everything." "Not everything." Samuel takes her shoulders gently. "You still have the copy, hidden in your dress." She looks at him with eyes that hold too much grief, too much exhaustion. "A copy will not be enough. You said so yourself. We need the originals. Then we take them back. From Reed Samuel, he is armed. You can barely stand. If we try to fight him, we die. Maybe. Or maybe we are smarter than him." Samuel pulls her close, speaking quickly, outlining a plan that is forming even as he speaks it. A desperate plan. A dangerous plan. But the only plan they have. When he finishes, Maggie stares at him for a long moment. Then impossibly she smiles. "You are insane. Been called worse." The old man pauses and is telling, his eyes distant. "Looking back, I can see how reckless we were, how close we came to dying in that house. But in the moment when you have already lost everything and death feels inevitable anyway, recklessness becomes a kind of courage. We walked up to that house like we had every right to be there, like we were not fugitives, like we were not desperate, and somehow it worked. Maggie walks up to the front door alone. Samuel watches from the shadows beside the barn, his revolver drawn, every muscle coiled tight despite the pain. If this goes wrong, if Reed recognizes her immediately, Samuel will have perhaps 3 seconds to intervene before she dies. Maggie raises her hand and knocks. Strong, confident. Not the knock of a desperate woman on the run. The door opens. The old woman stands there, lamplight spilling out behind her. She takes in Maggie's appearance. The borrowed dress, the bruised face, the exhaustion. Lord have mercy, child. What happened to you? Maggie sways slightly, and it is not entirely an act. Please, I need help. Been walking for days. My horse threw me. No food, no water. The old woman's face fills with concern. Martha, get some blankets. This girl is half dead. She reaches out to steady Maggie. Come in, come in. Let's get you by the fire. Maggie steps inside and Samuel's view is cut off. Now he has to trust. Trust that she can handle herself. Trust that the plan will work. Trust that he will know when to move. Through the window he sees Maggie being led into the room where Reed sits. Sees Reed's face change. Recognition. Surprise. Then calculation. Samuel hears Reed's voice muffled through the walls. Miss Ashford, didn't expect to see you again. A pause. Then Maggie's voice, weak but clear. Where's Brooks? Dead. He died 2 days ago. I've been walking alone since. Samuel almost smiles despite everything. She is selling it, making Reed think she is alone, beaten, ready to surrender. Through the window he watches Reed stand up. The old couple look confused, sensing tension they do not understand. Reed's hand moves toward the gun at his hip. That's convenient. Saves me the trouble of killing him. Reed crosses to Maggie. She does not back away, does not flinch, just stands there swaying slightly, one hand clutching her dress. Where's the copy? Reed's voice has gone cold. I know you made a copy of those letters. Where is it? What copy? Don't play games with me, girl. Garrison wants everything. Every scrap of evidence. You give it to me now, or I start breaking things until you do. The old man. Thomas Patterson stands up from the table. His face is troubled. Now wait just a minute. I don't know what's going on here, but you can't threaten a woman in my house. Sit down, old man. This doesn't concern you. The hell it doesn't. Patterson's voice grows firmer. I didn't invite you into my home so you could terrorize a girl half your size. Reed turns to face Patterson, his hand on his gun. I said sit down. That is when Samuel moves. He comes through the back door, silent as smoke. The old woman Beth sees him first. Her eyes go wide, but before she can speak, Samuel raises a finger to his lips. She freezes, some instinct telling her this stranger is not the threat here. Samuel crosses the kitchen, his boots making no sound on the wooden floor. Through the doorway he can see Reed's back, can see Maggie's face beyond him, her eyes tracking Samuel's approach. Reed is still focused on Patterson, still trying to intimidate the old man into submission. He does not hear Samuel until it is too late. Samuel presses the barrel of his revolver against the base of Reed's skull. Evening, Dalton. Reed goes absolutely still. For a moment, the only sound is the tick of a clock on the mantel and the crackle of fire in the hearth. Then Reed's voice tight with fury. Brooks, you're supposed to be dead. Life is full of disappointments. Samuel reaches around with his free hand and removes Reed's gun from its holster, drops it on the floor and kicks it toward Maggie. Now here's how this is going to work. You're going to tell me exactly how you found those letters. Why would I do that? Because if you don't, I'm going to let Miss Ashford shoot you, and she's been wanting to shoot someone for about a week now. Maggie picks up Reed's gun. Her hands are steady. Her eyes are not. She points it at Reed's chest, and Samuel can see she means it. This woman has been pushed beyond fear into something harder, something that would pull the trigger without hesitation. Reed must see it too because his posture shifts. Less defiant, more calculating. Found them in the ravine. Your saddlebag came loose during the descent. Envelope fell out. My men picked it up, brought it to me this morning. Samuel feels Maggie tense beside him. Hears her breath catch. He speaks before she can. And you just happened to stop here for dinner. Was heading to Garrison's ranch to deliver them. Saw the smoke, figured I'd get a hot meal first. Reed's voice carries a sneer. Guess that was a mistake. Your last one. Samuel glances at Patterson. Sir, I apologize for bringing this trouble to your door, but I need your help. I need you to tie this man up and keep him locked in your barn until we're long gone. Patterson looks at Samuel, at Maggie, at Reed, then at his wife. Beth nods once firmly. Patterson moves to a drawer and pulls out a coil of rope. I don't know what's going on here, but any man who threatens a woman in my house doesn't deserve courtesy. Smart choice, old man. Reed's voice is venomous. But when Garrison finds out you helped them, he'll burn this place to the ground. Let him try. Patterson's voice is steady. Edward Ashford saved my son from drowning 15 years ago. I owe that family a debt, and I pay my debts. They tie Reed's hands behind his back and his feet together. They do it well with the knots of men who have worked with rope all their lives. Then Patterson and Samuel half carry, half drag him out to the barn and lock him in a horse stall. As they walk back to the house, Patterson speaks quietly. You have maybe 12 hours before someone comes looking for him, maybe less. Use them well. We will. Samuel stops, turns to face the old man. Why are you helping us? You don't know us. Don't know if what we say is true. Patterson looks at him for a long moment. Then he smiles, sad and knowing. I'm 73 years old, lived through a war, raised 6 children, buried 2 of them. And I've learned one thing for certain. There are people in this world who take, and there are people who give. The takers always justify themselves, always have reasons why they deserve what they steal. But the givers, they don't need reasons. They just do what's right because it needs doing. He puts a hand on Samuel's shoulder. You came running when you heard a woman scream. That tells me everything I need to know about what kind of man you are. So yes, I'm helping you, because that's what the world needs more of. People who answer when someone screams. Inside, Beth has packed food for them. Bread, cheese, smoked meat, dried fruit. More than they could have hoped for. Maggie stands by the fire, clutching the leather envelope to her chest, like it might disappear again if she loosens her grip. Samuel picks it up and examines the contents. Everything is there. Every letter. Every document. Undamaged. He looks at Maggie. Combined with your copy, this should be enough. More than enough. Should be. Her voice is hollow. But we thought that before. This time will be different. How can you know I don't? But I choose to believe it anyway. He reaches out and takes her hand. Come on. We've got 12 hours before Reed gets loose. Let's not waste them. They gather their supplies, thank the Pattersons with words that feel inadequate, and walk back out into the night. Flint and Silver are where they left them cropping grass, unconcerned with human drama. As they mount up, Beth calls out from the doorway. There's a town 5 miles west of here. Silverdale. Has a deputy sheriff and a telegraph office. Might be worth stopping there before you push on to Helena. Samuel considers this. A telegraph office means they could wire ahead to the territorial marshal. Give him advance warning. Maybe even get protection sent to meet them. Thank you. For everything. Go with God, both of you. And when this is over, come back. Tell us how it ends. We will. But even as he says it, Samuel wonders if it is true. If they will survive long enough for there to be an ending. They ride through the night, pushing the horses harder than Samuel wants to, but not as hard as desperation demands. Behind them, Dalton Reed sits tied in a barn, counting minutes until someone finds him. Ahead, somewhere in the darkness, lies Silverdale, and whatever help they might find there. Samuel's body has moved beyond pain into a strange, floating numbness. His ribs no longer scream with every breath. They just exist, broken and wrong background noise to the larger symphony of exhaustion. The wound in his side has stopped bleeding, but started to burn with the heat of infection. He knows with cold certainty that he is running on borrowed time, that his body will collapse eventually, The only question is whether it will happen before they reach safety or after. Beside him, Maggie rides with the leather envelope visible, now no longer hidden. A dare to anyone watching. A statement. We have the proof. We have the truth. Come and take it if you dare. As the sky begins to lighten with false dawn, they see it. Smoke from chimneys, the dark shapes of buildings against the slightly less dark sky. Silverdale. They have made it. For now. Silverdale is small even by frontier standards. Perhaps 24 buildings clustered around a single dirt street. A general store. A saloon. A boarding house. And there at the far end of town, a small building with a star painted on the window. Law. Civilization. Hope. They ride straight for it past windows where curious faces peer out at these two battered strangers arriving with the dawn. They stop in front of the law office and dismount. Samuel's legs nearly give out when his feet hit the ground, but Maggie steadies him with a hand on his arm. Together they walk to the door. Samuel knocks. Once, twice. Then the door opens, and a young man stands there, perhaps 28 years old, wearing a deputy's badge and a confused expression. Help you folks. Samuel opens his mouth to speak, but before he can, the sound of hoofbeats fills the street. He turns and sees 3 riders galloping into town, hard-faced men, armed, hired guns drawn by Garrison's bounty. They see Samuel and Maggie. They see the deputy. They pull up their horses 50 yards away, hands moving toward their weapons. The deputy, whose name Samuel will learn is James Walker, takes in the situation with the quick assessment of a man who has lived on the frontier all his life. He steps in front of Samuel and Maggie, his hand on his own gun. "That's far enough, boys. State your business." One of the men, scar-faced and mean-looking, calls out, "Those 2 are wanted. Horse theft and murder. We're bringing them in." Walker looks at Samuel and Maggie, then back at the 3 men. "That's so. You got warrants?" "Don't need warrants. Got bounty papers signed by William Garrison." "William Garrison isn't the law." Walker's voice hardens. "And I don't recognize bounty hunters in my town, so you boys can turn those horses around and ride out." The scar-faced man's hand moves closer to his gun. "You're making a mistake, deputy." "Maybe so, but it's my mistake to make. Now clear out before I arrest you for disturbing the peace." For a long moment the world holds its breath. Samuel can see the calculation in the men's eyes. 3 against 1 are good odds, but killing a deputy even in a small town brings consequences. Federal consequences. Finally the scar-faced man spits into the dirt. "You're protecting murderers. I'm protecting 2 people until I know the truth." Walker's voice stays level. "Now move along." The 3 men turn their horses and ride out of town, slowly, making sure everyone sees they are leaving by choice, not by fear. When they are gone, Walker turns to Samuel and Maggie. "Inside, now, before they change their minds." The office is small and spare. A desk, 3 chairs, a wall of wanted posters, a gun rack. Walker closes the door and turns to face them. "All right, talk fast. What's really going on here?" Samuel tells the story for what feels like the 100th time. The scream, the rescue, the murder of Edward Ashford, the flight through the mountains. He lays the leather envelope on Walker's desk and opens it, showing the letters inside. Walker reads in silence, his face growing more serious with each page. When he finishes, he looks up at them. This is heavy, real heavy. If what these letters say is true, William Garrison murdered a man and tried to steal his land. It's true. Maggie speaks for the first time, her voice raw. Every word of it. "I believe you, but believing isn't enough. We need to get this to Helena, to the territorial marshal. He's the only one with authority to arrest a man like Garrison. That's where we're going." Samuel leans against the desk, his exhaustion too great to hide. "We just need to get there alive." Walker studies them both. The woman with her bruised face and fierce eyes, the man who can barely stand. 2 people who should be broken, but somehow are not. "I'll ride with you. Make sure you get there safe. You don't have to do that." "Yes, I do." Walker stands and reaches for his coat. Because if Garrison gets away with this, every small-time tyrant in the territory will think they can do the same. and I didn't become a lawman to watch bullies win." He pauses at the door. "Fair warning, though, Garrison has friends in Helena. Powerful friends. Getting to the marshal is one thing. Getting him to act is another." They rest for 2 hours at the boarding house next door. Walker's aunt runs it a stern woman named Agnes, who takes one look at Samuel's wounds and declares him a fool for riding in his condition. But she feeds them soup and bread, changes Samuel's bandages, and gives them a room where they can sleep. Samuel lies down on an actual bed and feels consciousness starting to slip away. Maggie lies beside him close but not touching, and he can hear her breathing. Steady. Alive. "We're going to make it." He says it to the ceiling, to the room, to whatever gods might be listening. Maggie's hand finds his, squeezes once. "Promise, promise." Then sleep takes him dark and dreamless and merciful. When he wakes 2 hours later, the sun is fully up and Walker is knocking on the door. Time to ride. They leave Silverdale with an escort. Walker rides beside them, his badge visible, his rifle across his saddle. Insurance against anyone who might try something stupid. The 3 hired guns are nowhere to be seen, but Samuel knows they are out there somewhere. Watching, waiting. The ride to Helena is the longest day of Samuel's life. Every mile feels like 10. His fever, which he thought had broken, returns with a vengeance. His vision swims in and out of focus. He has to concentrate on simply staying in the saddle, on not falling, on continuing to exist. Maggie stays close, ready to catch him if he falls. Walker keeps watch, his eyes constantly scanning the horizon for threats. They stop twice to rest the horses and let Samuel catch his breath. Each time it gets harder to remount, harder to keep going, but they do, because there is no other choice. As afternoon fades toward evening, the landscape changes. More farms, more people, signs of civilization growing denser. And then, as the sun touches the western peaks, they see it. Helena, the territorial capital. Buildings spread across a valley, church spires, rising smoke from hundreds of chimneys. More people in one place than Samuel has seen in 3 years. More law, more order, more hope. "We made it." Maggie's voice is thick with emotion. "Samuel, we actually made it." "Not yet." Walker points toward the center of town. "Marshal's office is there. We're not done until those letters are in his hands." They ride through Helena's streets as the town prepares for night. People stop to stare at these 3 riders, 2 of them obviously injured, all of them obviously desperate. But no one interferes. This close to the law, even Garrison's men would think twice. The territorial marshal's office is a solid stone building that looks like it could withstand a siege. They stop in front of it, and this time when Samuel dismounts, his legs do give out. He hits the ground hard, and only Walker's quick reaction keeps him from cracking his head on the stone steps. "Easy, friend. Almost there." Between Maggie and Walker, they get Samuel inside. A secretary looks up startled, then hurries to help. They ease Samuel into a chair, and he sits there breathing hard while the world spins around him. A door opens. A man emerges. Perhaps 58 years old, iron gray hair eyes that have seen enough of human nature to be surprised by very little. He wears a badge that reads, Territorial Marshal. Robert Hayes. His voice carries authority without effort. "What's going on here?" Walker steps forward. "Marshal Hayes, these people need to speak with you. It's urgent. Everything's urgent." Hayes's eyes take in Samuel's condition. Maggie's bruises the leather envelope she clutches. "But I'm listening." Maggie steps forward, places the envelope on Hayes's desk, opens it with trembling hands. "My name is Margaret Ashford. 6 months ago, William Garrison murdered my father to steal our ranch. This envelope contains proof. Letters in my father's own hand documenting Garrison's threats, correspondence with a lawyer about mineral rights. Everything you need to arrest him and see justice done." Hayes picks up the first letter, begins to read. His expression does not change, but something in his posture shifts. He reads another, then another. When he finally looks up, his face is grave. This is serious. Very serious. If these letters are authentic, they show intent, motive, and opportunity for murder. They're authentic. I'd stake my badge on it. Walker's voice is firm, and these 2 have been hunted across half the territory trying to get them here. Hayes sets down the letters and looks at Maggie. Garrison has powerful friends, territorial governor, men in Washington. If I move against him and fail, my career is over. Maggie's face flushes with anger. And if you don't move, he'll kill more people. He murdered my father. He tried to kill me and Samuel. How many more deaths are acceptable before you find your courage? The room goes silent. No one speaks to a territorial marshal that way. But Hayes's expression does not change. Instead, he nods slowly. You're right. I apologize. He stands. Based on these documents, I'm issuing a warrant for William Garrison's arrest on charges of fraud, intimidation, and conspiracy to commit murder. Just conspiracy. Samuel forces the words out. Not murder. Hayes looks at him with sympathy. To convict him of murder, I need more than letters. I need a witness who was there when Edward Ashford died, or I need one of Garrison's men to turn against him. We have Dalton Reed. He's locked in Thomas Patterson's barn. He knows everything. Reed is loyal to Garrison. He won't testify without incentive. Hayes moves to his door and calls out, Matthews, assemble a team. 6 good men who can't be bought. We ride to arrest William Garrison within the hour, and send word to Patterson's place. Bring in Dalton Reed for questioning. He turns back to Samuel and Maggie. You two will stay here in Helena under protective custody. I'll put you up at the Granville Hotel with guards posted. Garrison won't be able to touch you there. Maggie opens her mouth to argue, but Samuel touches her arm. He's right. We've done our part. Now we let the law do it. The old man's voice grows quiet, reflective. We thought that was the end. Thought we had won. Justice was coming. Garrison would be arrested. The nightmare would be over. But we were young, naive. We did not yet understand that justice is never simple, that the law is not the same as fairness, that sometimes even when you have the truth on your side, the powerful find ways to slip through the cracks. The next 3 days would teach us those lessons, and they would be hard lessons indeed. The Granville Hotel is the finest building Samuel has ever been inside. Carpeted floors, wallpaper, a bed with actual springs, a bathroom with running water, luxury beyond anything his cabin could offer. He lies in that bed while a doctor examines him. The doctor, an older man named Phillips, probes his ribs with practiced fingers, changes his bandages, cleans his wounds with something that burns like fire. You're lucky to be alive. 3 broken ribs, 1 wound that should have killed you from infection and signs of serious exhaustion. You should be in bed for a month. Don't have a month. No, I suppose you don't. Phillips closes his medical bag. But you have 3 days before the trial. Use them. Rest. Heal. Or you won't make it to the witness stand. After the doctor leaves, Maggie comes in. She has bathed, her bruises still visible, but the blood and dirt washed away. She wears a clean dress, her hair pulled back. She looks almost like a different person from the woman who stumbled into Hayes's office hours ago. She sits on the edge of the bed. How do you feel? Like I got kicked by a horse, then dragged behind it, then kicked again. So about the same as yesterday. About the same. They sit in silence for a moment. Then Maggie speaks, her voice soft. Samuel, what happens after, assuming we survive the trial, assuming Garrison goes to prison? What happens to us? Samuel takes her hand. What do you want to happen? I want my father's ranch back. Want to rebuild it the way he dreamed it could be. Orchards, cattle, a place where good people can make honest livings. But I don't want to do it alone. She looks at him directly. These past days with you, even with all the fear and pain, I've felt more alive than I have in years, more certain of who I am. You did that, not by rescuing me, but by believing in me, by treating me as a partner, not a victim. Samuel sits up slowly, ignoring his ribs' protest. Margaret Ashford, when this is over, when Garrison is in prison and the law has done its work, I would be honored to help you rebuild that ranch, to stand beside you while you make your father's dreams real, because in 3 days you've shown me what it means to truly live, to fight for something that matters, to care about someone more than I care about my own comfort. He pauses, then says what he has known since that first night, but been too cautious to admit. I love you. I don't know when it happened. Maybe when you refused to let me die on that trail. Maybe when you stood up to Dalton Reed with a gun in your hand. Maybe the moment you answered my knock on your door that first night. But I love you, and whatever comes next, I want to face it with you." Tears run down her face. She leans forward and kisses him, gentle and careful of his injuries. When she pulls back, she is smiling. "Then we'll face it together." The trial begins 2 days later. The courtroom is packed with people who have come from all over the territory. Word has spread about the case, about the murdered rancher and his daughter seeking justice, about the powerful man finally being held accountable. Samuel sits in the front row, his ribs tightly bound, his body propped upright through sheer will. Beside him, Maggie holds the leather envelope on her lap. Around them, familiar faces: Thomas and Beth Patterson, Joe and Ruth Crawford, James Walker, all the people who chose to help when they could have turned away. William Garrison sits at the defense table, flanked by 2 expensive lawyers. He wears a fine suit. His hair is perfectly combed. He looks like a prosperous businessman, not a murderer. But Samuel can see the fear lurking behind his carefully maintained composure. The judge, an older man with the face of someone who has seen every kind of human deception, calls the court to order. The trial lasts 6 days. 6 days of testimony and cross-examination and legal maneuvering. The prosecution, led by Hayes himself, presents the letters one by one, explains their significance, builds a careful case of premeditation and murder. Thomas Patterson testifies about finding Samuel and Maggie at his house, about Dalton Reed's threats, about the evidence Reed was carrying. Joe Crawford testifies about Garrison's reputation, about the pattern of good people losing their land to mysterious accidents and sudden deaths. James Walker testifies about the 3 hired guns who tried to stop them in Silverdale, about the bounty Garrison had placed on their heads. And then on the 4th day, Maggie takes the stand. She walks to the witness box with her head high. The bruises on her face have faded to yellow and green, but they are still visible, still testimony to what Garrison did to her. The prosecutor leads her through the story: her father's discovery of copper on the land, Garrison's offers, the refusal, the threats, the accident that killed Edward Ashford, the forged debt documents, the search for evidence, the attack in the barn. Maggie tells it all in a clear, steady voice. She does not cry, does not falter. She recounts horror with the precision of someone who has decided that emotion is a luxury she cannot afford. Not here, not now. When she finishes, Garrison's lawyer stands for cross-examination. He is a thin man with sharp features and sharper eyes. He circles Maggie like a predator. "Miss Ashford, isn't it true that you studied literature in school?" "Yes. And literature involves creative writing, fiction, making things up. I also studied law, which is why I know you're trying to discredit me by suggesting women are emotional and unreliable." A ripple of laughter runs through the courtroom. The judge bangs his gavel. The lawyer's face tightens. "You claim my client attacked you in the barn, yet you have no witnesses to the initial attack. I have Samuel Brooks. He saw the aftermath, saw me bleeding on the floor with Garrison standing over me. Mr. Brooks didn't witness the actual violence. For all we know, you injured yourself to frame my client." Maggie's eyes flash with anger, but her voice stays controlled. "If I were capable of such elaborate deception, I wouldn't have needed Mr. Brooks to rescue me. I would have rescued myself." More laughter. The jury looks at Maggie with respect, with belief. She has won them over not through tears or helplessness, but through intelligence and strength. The lawyer tries a few more angles, but Maggie parries each one with precision. When she finally steps down, Samuel can see exhaustion in the way she moves, but also triumph. She has told her truth, and the jury heard it. On the 5th day, Samuel testifies. He describes the scream that brought him running, the scene in the barn, Garrison with the gun, Maggie bleeding on the floor, the fight, the broken ribs, the desperate flight through the mountains. The defense attorney tries to shake his testimony. "Aren't you in love with Miss Ashford?" "Yes." "So you're biased. You'd say anything to protect her." "I'd tell the truth to protect her. And the truth is that William Garrison is a murderer who needs to answer for his crimes. No amount of cross-examination can change what Samuel saw, what he experienced. The jury can see it in his face, in the way he holds his broken ribs when he breathes. This is a man who has paid in blood for his testimony. When Samuel steps down, he catches Garrison's eyes. The man stares at him with cold hatred, with the promise of retribution. But Samuel stares back unflinching. He has faced worse than Garrison's hatred. He has faced death itself and kept walking. Garrison looks away first. On the 6th day, the prosecution presents its final witness, Dalton Reed. Reed shuffles into the courtroom in shackles, his face bitter. He has been offered a deal: testify against Garrison and receive a reduced sentence, refuse and hang alongside his employer. He has chosen survival. Reed takes the stand and tells everything: about Garrison's plans to force Edward Ashford off his land, about the staged accident, about how they fired shots to spook Ashford's horse, about how they killed the horse afterward to hide evidence of the gunshots, about the orders to kill Samuel and Maggie if they were caught. The courtroom is silent as Reed speaks. People lean forward, drinking in every word. This is the testimony they needed, the missing piece, direct evidence from someone who was there. When Reed finishes, the defense attorney tries to destroy him. "You're a criminal making a deal to save your own skin." "Why should anyone believe you?" Reed's answer is simple: "Because it's the truth. And because I'm tired of carrying it." The prosecution rests. The defense calls no witnesses. There is nothing they can say that will overcome the weight of evidence. Letters, testimony, motive, opportunity. A confession from a co-conspirator. The jury deliberates for 6 hours. When they return, their faces tell the story before the foreman speaks. We find the defendant, William Garrison, guilty of conspiracy to commit murder, guilty of fraud, guilty of intimidation, guilty of attempted murder of Margaret Ashford and Samuel Brooks. The courtroom erupts. People cheer. Others cry. Samuel feels Maggie's hand find his, her grip crushing his fingers. The judge hammers his gavel for silence. When order is restored, he looks at Garrison with an expression of cold contempt. "William Garrison, you have been found guilty of crimes that strike at the very foundation of civilized society. You have murdered, stolen, and terrorized innocent people for personal gain. This court sentences you to hang by the neck until dead, sentence to be carried out in 30 days. May God have mercy on your soul." Garrison lurches to his feet, his composure finally cracking. "I had nothing. My family lost everything. I built an empire from ashes, and you're taking it away for one man's death. You built your empire on the graves of honest men." The judge's voice is like iron. "Justice has finally found you. Bailiff, remove the prisoner." They drag Garrison away, still protesting, still claiming injustice. Samuel watches him go and feels nothing. No triumph, no satisfaction. Just emptiness, where anger used to be. Afterward, they stand on the courthouse steps in the autumn sun. People crowd around offering congratulations. Hayes shakes their hands, tells them the Ashford Ranch will be returned to Maggie immediately, along with financial compensation for her losses. James Walker tips his hat. "You two did good, real good." Joe and Ruth Crawford embrace them both. "Come visit when you're settled. We want to hear how this all turns out." Thomas and Beth Patterson simply smile, knowing smiles that suggest they already know how it will turn out. As the crowd disperses, Samuel and Maggie stand alone on the steps. Below them, Helena goes about its business. Life continues. The world turns. It's over. Maggie says it like she cannot quite believe it. Not quite. Samuel's voice is gentle. In 30 days, Garrison hangs. Then it's over. "Will you come with me to watch?" "Yes. We started this together. We'll finish it together." 30 days later, Samuel and Maggie stand at the back of a crowd gathered to watch William Garrison hang. They do not speak. There is nothing to say. Garrison walks to the gallows with his head down, the arrogance finally burned away. He climbs the steps. The noose goes around his neck. The preacher says words that mean nothing and everything. And then Garrison speaks, his final words carried on the morning wind. "Miss Ashford, Mr. Brooks," he looks directly at them. "I'm sorry, to you and to your father. I became the monster I feared most. I tried to control everything because I was afraid of losing everything, and in the end I lost anyway. I'm sorry." Maggie does not respond, does not acknowledge, but Samuel sees her hand move to her chest where her father's picture rests in a locket, sees her lips move in what might be a prayer or might be goodbye. The trapdoor opens, Garrison falls, the rope catches him. It is over in seconds. The crowd disperses. Samuel and Maggie walk away together. Behind them, justice has been served. Ahead of them, a future waits. 2 years later, the Ashford Ranch has been transformed. New fences line the property. The house has been repaired, painted, made whole. In the south meadow, young apple trees grow in neat rows. Edward Ashford's dream finally taking root. Maggie stands on the porch, one hand resting on her swollen belly. 7 months pregnant. A daughter, the doctor says. They have already chosen the name. Faith. Samuel works in the corral, teaching a young ranch hand how to break a horse gently. His ribs healed crookedly, and they ache when the weather turns cold. But he can work, can ride, can build. They have hired 6 hands to work the ranch. Good men who needed honest work. Men who know the story of what happened here and respect it. The ranch is prospering, growing, becoming what Edward always hoped it could be. At night, Maggie still has nightmares sometimes. Samuel wakes to find her sitting up in bed, breathing hard, reliving that barn, or that chase, or that endless fear. He holds her until the fear passes, until she remembers she is safe. And sometimes Samuel wakes from his own nightmares, dreams where he does not answer the scream, where he turns away and lets Maggie die, where everything they built crumbles to dust. Maggie holds him through those nights, whispering that it is over, that they are safe, that they have won. Because they have. They survived. They fought. They won. But the cost was high. Samuel's body will never fully heal. Maggie's scars, physical and mental, will never completely fade. They have paid in blood and pain and trauma for the justice they sought. Was it worth it? On good days, Samuel thinks yes. Thinks about the daughter growing in Maggie's belly. Thinks about the life they are building. Thinks about how answering that scream led him to love and purpose and everything that makes life worth living. On bad days when his ribs ache and he sees Maggie flinch at unexpected sounds, he wonders if ignorance might have been easier, if walking away might have hurt less. But then Maggie smiles at him, takes his hand, places it on her belly so he can feel their daughter kick. And he knows the answer. It was worth it. Every broken rib, every moment of terror, every sacrifice, because the alternative was a life of cowardice and regret, a life where he heard someone scream and did nothing. And that is not a life worth living. The old man falls silent. In the present, in the warm cabin in 2024, his grandson wipes tears from his eyes. What happened to the ranch? Grandpa to grandmother. We ran it together for 43 years, raised Faith there and later her 3 children. Your mother was born in that house, grew up in those orchards. The ranch became what Edward Ashford dreamed it could be, a place where good people did good work and treated each other fairly. Your grandmother died 5 years ago, in her sleep, peaceful. She was 88 years old and she lived every one of those years fully. We sold the ranch after she passed. I couldn't bear to stay there without her. But the new owners are good people. They're keeping it going, keeping the dream alive. He looks at the photograph again, at the young man and woman on that porch so long ago. And did you regret it? Answering her scream every day. And never. The old man's voice is barely a whisper. My body paid a price it never fully recovered from. Your grandmother had nightmares until the day she died. We lost years of peace to fear and trauma. That is the cost of doing what is right. It is never free. But would I do it again knowing what I know now? Would I answer that scream if I could go back? Yes, 1,000 times yes. Because the alternative is living as a coward. And I would rather die a hero with broken ribs than live a long life as a man who turned away when someone needed him. He sets down the photograph and looks at his grandson. That is what I want you to understand. life will present you with moments. Moments where you have to choose between the easy path and the right one, between safety and courage, between self-interest and sacrifice. And in those moments you have to decide what kind of person you are. I chose to answer a scream in the twilight, and it cost me everything, and gave me everything. Both things are true. The fire crackles, snow falls against the window, and the old man closes his eyes, remembering a scream that changed his life, a woman who became his wife, a choice that defined him. Sometimes he thinks that is all we can do, answer when someone screams, and hope it is enough. Outside, the Montana winter deepens, inside, the story ends, but the lessons remain passed from grandfather to grandson, from generation to generation. Lessons about courage, about sacrifice, about the price of justice and the cost of love, and about how sometimes the most important thing a person can do is simply hear someone scream and choose to answer. That is what it means to be human. That is what it means to be alive. That is what it means to matter. The old man sleeps, and in his dreams he is 27 again, riding through the twilight toward a sound that will change everything. The scream that gave him everything. The scream that cost him everything. The scream he would answer again without hesitation in every lifetime. Outside, the Montana winter deepens. Inside, an old man dreams of the moment he became the man he was always meant to be, the moment he heard someone scream and answered.